Well, looks like we're starting to get some people joining us. So
Hey,
welcome everyone.
everybody, come on in.
As we're also getting into this, I want to remind you that this month is Financial Literacy Month,
Woo!
and so exciting. This is
So
actually
exciting.
this is one of our first parts of Financial Literacy Month. We're doing a few things this month, and today we have Charla McKinley, who's the Artisan of Adulting. So she's a speaker and an author. And her desire is just to help parents raising kids, prepare them to be successful adults in a lot of areas, but one specific and the main one that we'll be discussing today is, of course, the financial side of things. So one exciting thing, we have our webinar today that you guys are here for. We also have a blog post that Charla wrote for us. It's live on our website, homelifeacademy.com/blogs. So if you want to head over there, you can check that out and see what she wrote about there. A little personal story from her own experience, which is really cool to read. Also, one more thing before we get into the webinar, we're partnering with Beyond Personal Finance, which is one of Charla's businesses. HLA is partnering with her to give you guys a discount if you want to purchase any curriculum from there. So if you go to the Beyond Personal Finance website and use the code HLA20, that will give you a discount for anything that you purchase over there, any curriculum. So is that right, Charla?
That's right. There's a self-paced class on there that you would get 20% off. And the group is already, the group product is a little bit different because, it gets cheaper with the number of students. So the coupon would work on the self-paced class.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Also, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available for rewatching. So if you miss something or if you want to come back and rewatch and hear what Charla said again, then it'll be up on our YouTube channel not too long. We'll do some editing and then get it out to you guys with some links. Our YouTube channel is just YouTube/HomeLife Academy. So anyways, Charla, why don't you go ahead and get into what you've prepared for us today?
Sure. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly and briefly because I just really would rather answer questions that you have. But I'll just throw some of my thoughts and my experiences out there and just let you kind of launch from there with whatever questions you have. So the title that we landed on was financial freedom is possible, or something similar to that. And this idea of your kids being financially independent, financially mature is something that they can have, but it won't just happen with your words. I think that we all know that we learn better through experience. And so the first step is to get money into your kids' hands so that they can practice. Money has natural constraints, and the sooner your kids see it, the more they can begin to understand how it works and bounce off their values. Do I want to spend my money on this, or do I want to save it for that? Those kind of things. So you got to get money in their hands. But, most people immediately think of an allowance, and that they're not wrong, but where a lot of parents hesitate is they're not quite sure. It feels like they're giving their kid free money, and that is not the goal at all, because you're not practicing anything in adulting if you're thinking free money is free, right? So you want to give money with a structure. You want to say, hey, instead, my son loved two things when he was a kid. He loved candy and Legos. And so anytime we were at the store, he asked if he could have some candy, and then he was all the time wanting Legos. So I gave him money and I said, hey, from now on, you will be buying your candy and your Legos. And I set out a structure. And again, that's outside of the scope of here, but I definitely have resources on my site for this. But I set out a structure where I simply stopped buying him those things. I bought him toys on his birthday and Christmas. The rest was up to him. special occasions every now and then. And the same thing with candy. When he went to the store, hey, get your money if you want to get a treat. That way he began to see and value, wow, if I got candy now, that means I'll have less money for Legos later. So that practice is what you want to do. It's your money transferred to them for things that you would ordinarily buy. As they get older, clothes, school supplies, anything that you are spending money on them. I've got a friend who has transferred the money that they spend on extracurriculars and said, okay, you really love baseball, but you're asking me for a bunch of baseball stuff. Instead, I'm going to give you a budget for baseball, and you're going to need to figure out if you really do need a new glove, if you really do want to go to that tournament, whatever it is. It's so individual that it's hard to really customize, but you can understand this helps them see the natural constraint of money. Because if they don't, then it's just, I recently got off of a cruise for spring break, and the all you can eat buffet was like a perfect metaphor for what our kids think about our wallets. They don't see that there is a budget until they know. So everything looks good. Of course, they want a glove and bat and shoes and socks and tournament until they recognize, wait a minute, I only have this much to spend. And it is better if they manage it because they buy into the process more so than you just simply telling them, I only have this much to spend. They really need to see it themselves and experience it. The next thing is they need to work, because while they see one side of the equation about how fast money goes, they need to see the other side of the equation, which is how hard it is to earn that money. So they can now begin to connect the dots between effort and how much that candy bar is. Oh, that candy bar is half an hour at my job, or whatever it is. So they need to connect those two dots, and they do that through working. And it really needs to be work for someone else, for a lot of reasons, because they need to learn. Someone else needs to correct them. Someone else needs to give them a schedule. Someone else needs to get them ready for adulting. They need to work outside of the family nest to practice, and the natural thing they can practice is what they do with their money. And the difference with this money that they have is, with this money, they're going to use those dollars to upgrade their lifestyle, to spend something current. You're going to give them a framework. I like 20% on current wants, 70% on future wants, and 10%, I believe that they need to give away. They need to practice mindfully being aware of other people and the needs of other people. So a little bit on that 70%. I am a spender, and it's my natural tendency. My son is a spender. And what I've learned from him is when I use the word savings, I sound really, really lame to him. He is not interested. He doesn't see the value of it. I actually was sitting in a webinar somewhere, and someone said, saving for the future is like saving for a stranger. And it's just really true. Jack, my son, doesn't know future Jack. He just doesn't know him. And so saving for future Jack, but what I've changed it to is, hey, you're going to get to spend all of this money. You're going to spend 20% on current Jack, 70% on future Jack, and 10% you're going to give away for the greater good. And I do that because, they need a structure. They don't think a lot of times they'll say, well, I worked for this money. Yes. And future Jack really appreciates it, right? That's the language, helping them sort of see that. So with their current money, they'll upgrade their lifestyle. I have a policy. I give my son the budget for his clothes. And when I do, I say, all right, I'm thinking only one pair of shoes, like tennis shoes, and I will not pay more than $80 for tennis shoes. And that's where his dollars come in. you can certainly spend more than that. You've got your own money. That kind of language is what I say. And that's how, so it's not that he's going to take his working money to spend on clothes. I've got that covered unless he wants to upgrade it. So clothes, entertainment, stuff like that, upgrading his lifestyle. And then finally, they have to see the future. And I don't want you to miss this one because this is the one we most often miss. But I have so many people. I love coming to homeschool conventions because I get to meet people and I get to meet my customers. And one of the things they always say is, man, I didn't do it right on my first kid, so I'm going to do it differently on kid 2. I thought just talking to them about it was enough. And it's not, because if all they're doing is managing their budget for their teenage wants and their teenage paycheck, when they get that first adult-sized paycheck, they think they are rich. They think, wow, $20,000. Oh, I mean, I should get a boat, right? Because it feels so big to them. You've got to introduce them to the future. You've got to help more than just with words, help them understand that, yeah, they are actually making a lot of money compared to what they were and compared to the amount of expenses they have. But they need to know that the bulk of that money in those first 22, 23, 24, the bulk of that money needs to be put aside for future wants and future needs, and not just, wow, I'm going to give away 10%, I'm going to save 20%, and I'm going to live off of the rest. Well, sometimes that's just way too much. So what I did to meet this need, this seeing the future, was I created Beyond Personal Finance. My son wasn't believing my words. He was wasting money. So I took everything I love about Game of Life, and instead I made it real. I gave him 20 years of his life. So in 20 lessons, he went through age 22 to 42. And he chose adult things. Adult things happened to him. He bought a car, rented an apartment, got married, had children, got a house, furnished the house, insurance, investments, all of those things in 20 lessons. And he created 20 budgets. And at the end of the class, the students are 42 years old, and they've got a savings account that they have watched rise and fall as those 20 adult years went by, and they've been managing it as teenagers, and they are seeing, oh, wow, yeah, the year I had kids, I really, or the year I left the workforce to stay home with the kids, that really cost me. They see it and getting it from their heads to their hearts in a way, because teenagers will argue with you. Oh, Mom, I would do it different. Really? Well, let me let you do it. And that was where I got with my son. So I created the curriculum when I was homeschooling him, and that was in 2014. And here we are today with that. So that's really all I've got. But
Yeah.
I want to talk about the questions that you have and the things that would matter to you in your journey with your teenagers.
And while we're waiting for those questions to come in, you can leave those in the Q&A below. I was curious, as you were talking about this, you mentioned teens a few times. What about for maybe someone who's not yet a teenager? What age would you say to start? Start this conversation with your kids. Maybe not the full, Beyond Personal Finance curriculum, but just start these conversations, start them thinking about this, because I assume there's an age that you would recommend, and probably before teens.
Yeah, certainly before teens, because the problem is by the time they're teenagers, their attention span to us is naturally less. They are outward focused, while at the same time inward focused, but they are not on us focused. We see that more in the developmental ages of younger kids. So when they are really young, that's when you use your words. Oh, look, Mommy is driving by this store to go to this store. Silly Mommy, why would you do that? Well, let me tell you, because this store we get more groceries for the same dollars at this store. Little playing store with them, having them sort money, little things, just introducing it, getting very comfortable. They're around you all the time at that age, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that kind of thing. And they're around you and they're asking questions. So I would just introduce it a little bit more, just be talking through things to them, little situations that you're going through, have them clip coupons. They can even, if they clip coupons that save you $5, you can give them the $5. What's this? Oh, that's the money we saved from you clipping the coupons. Isn't that so cool? And then let them spend the $5 on candy or whatever it is to help them see, oh, wait a minute. My efforts to save money or make money benefit me. Then as they get a little bit older and they're able to understand, they're still around you all the time, they're still sweet and they will listen. Those are the times where I really give them an allowance, but then, give them a deliverable. Like, okay, I'm going to give you $10 a week to be spent in these areas, to be spent current, future, and on others. Here's the structure. But in order to get the money, I need you to tell me how you spent it in the last week. Show me how much do you have left in the areas, and where did the money go? Keep track of it, right? And just have them, they will actually do it. They have the time to do it. They have the energy to do it. So at that age, this is, middle school and younger, depending on their development, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. But then in high school, the rubber really meets the road. This is when they're busier, they're more distracted, they're working. That's the kind of time where they really need to just be executing what you have set up all along. And I do have something I call the road to responsibility on my site. You can subscribe and follow me every week. I'll send an email along with a freebie of little reminders of this, that, and the other. And I have one called responsibility, the roadmap of responsibility. If you don't see that on my site, you can definitely reach out to me. There's going to be some links provided, and we can get you that roadmap as well.
All right. Well, we actually do have a question that came in from Rebecca. She says that her almost 13-year-old son gets commission every week, I think like an allowance.
I love it.
But he doesn't really want to spend his money on anything. She says maybe he's a natural saver.
That's right. Yes,
so
that is true.
Since he doesn't really need his money for anything, she says she's having a hard time getting him to do his chores for that weekly commission. So what is something that you'd recommend to maybe get him to be a little bit more motivated in that area?
Yes. So first, I never tie allowance and chores for this very reason, because my daughter is a natural saver, and there is really nothing, maybe Disney World, but she'd never be able to save up for that anyway. So she kind of knows that, but there is nothing that means enough for her to go clean the potty. It's just not going to happen. And so I still need the potty cleaned. So it is still her job to clean the potty, and she still gets an allowance. But those two I don't tie together, because I don't want a labor strike. I don't want to negotiate, or worse, like we're having now because of the pandemic, where now I'm having to offer more money to clean the potty. No. So you definitely want to kind of separate those. To me, you give an allowance with the expectation of them having to spend it on themselves and help them through that. A saver has different rules than a spender does, simply because they're just a different mindset. In fact, I have to make my daughter spend her money where I never had to make my son spend his money. So for that, I would say find something that you are normally spending money for your child on, and instead, like even out to eat. My family loves to go out to eat. So my son refused to eat off the kids menu, just refused. Mom, I'm hungrier than that. But he was young enough for the kids menu. So what I did instead is I gave him a budget. I said, okay, for this year, you're going to pay for your own food. It's my money that I would have spent on you. And instead, I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to buy yourself the dinner while we're all sitting there. It taught him a lot. He's got to look an adult in the eye and order his food. If his food comes back cold, he's got to decide if he's going to send it back or not. He's, he has to decide, do I want to eat off the kids menu and save some of that money, or do I want a full-size burger? And I used to try to get him to split food with me. Once I turned the money over to him and said, hey, you pay for your own food, he was asking me, hey, can we split? Because he wanted to split the burger with me so he could get the hand squeezed lemonade. It's like that. And that's what, there's probably something that you could, and I did want to circle back, Joseph, when you were asking about the age. The trouble with giving an allowance is people think, well, if they start at age 6, then they have to go all the way to age 18. And that's just it's just not true. Money is a tool that you can use in the same way that you would, give a flute to learn how to play the flute, right? It doesn't have to be forever. I did a season of money. So like I said, that 1 year when my son paid for his food, it was an opportunity for him to learn, almost like a class. And that's the beauty of homeschool, is we can make stuff like that a class. So that I had to sit down, I had to come up with a budget, I transferred it to him. He had a debit card. Someone had asked about a debit card. He had a card to pay for his portion of the check. And he did an analysis. How much did I spend? How much do I have left? And all of that. So you don't always have to give money forever. Money can serve a purpose to learn something, and then you don't have to do it forever. So especially with those savers, because they'll just hoard it. And then worst case, my daughter is 5 years younger than my son. My daughter would hoard money, and guess what? She'd give it to my son. And it's like, no. And my son, who's the spender, would gladly take it, spend all her money.
Yeah, well, it looks like there's maybe a few lessons that could be taught there then.
Oh, yes. And again, this is the beauty of homeschool, because we had the space and the time to let those lessons play out. Lots and lots of life skills are learned with money.
Yeah, no, that is very true. Yeah, homeschooling is great because you can take the time when that situation pops up. When you're in the restaurant, you can take that time and turn it into a class.
That's right.
It's a short little class. So
it's a beautiful thing.
It really is. You did mention the debit card a little bit. We had a couple questions actually. One of them was cash versus debit card, and maybe what age you might recommend getting a debit card. And then the other one was about, would you have them open their own bank account for that debit card?
Right. So yes, I would have them open their own bank account for the debit card. And the cash, it is important. Studies show that in the beginning, for a while, they actually need to be handed cash and spend that cash, because our brain makes the connection when it's not virtual money. So to the extent you can, for a little while, give them the money in cash. Also give it to them regularly. This is their payday. And so you don't want to teach them to be fearful or the scarcity or like grinding away for money. You don't want to do that. So you want to make sure, set an alarm, go to the bank, get a bunch of ones or, fives or whatever it is, and give them cash for a little while. And then you can transition into a bank account and the debit card. And the age on that is interesting. It's an interesting question, because they might be able to handle it. My daughter, I feel like she came out of the womb as an adult. She just really, versus my son, who took longer to get these lessons to stick. So it's not so much an age. It's a combination of their maturity and their hunger not literal, but their drive to want to spend that money, their understanding of the money, and they've got to be able to get the statement from the bank, look at it, summarize it for you. Here's how much money I spent. Here's how much money I have left. So you definitely want them to be able to keep up with the money on a debit card so that they'll understand that you don't just manage your money by just looking and to see how much is left. It's just a little bit more to it. And then the second piece of it is the amount of time you have. So it's far better to be intentional for a semester where you give them the money, they use the debit card, they do the thing, and then you stop, than it is for you to kind of do it and kind of do it halfway, and you ran out of time and you didn't give them the money and you forgot. And then now, because we're trying to teach them how to use the tool. And just like we would take them to piano lessons, I don't even know, I never took piano lessons, but regularly, you've got to have them use money regularly. You got to talk to them about it regularly, show them what the bank looks like regularly. So you've got to have the energy too during the season where you're training them how to use the debit card. They don't always, once they're trained, it's okay to kind of let them go from there. But when you do it, it's got to be when you've got some energy for it.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Because it is like teaching a class, which takes time and energy. So
that's right.
I remember my first bank account. There was a bank not too far from our house that they had a children's bank account, which I don't know if banks still do that.
They do.
I'm sure some do. And I remember getting my first paper statement in the mail, and I was so excited. And I looked at it and I tried to figure out, how much interest I got, which I think because it was a kid's account, it was like 1.5% interest or something like that. It was crazy high. I was so happy. And then when I got my first adult bank account, of course, I saw 0.1% or whatever. And
that's right.
Not quite as happy, but it definitely taught me. And there was that excitement there. I don't remember what age I was. I was probably maybe 11, 12, something like that.
Yeah,
and I remember that excitement was great.
My year for teaching my son about the class of money was when he was in 7th grade. He was good with numbers. He was home. It wasn't time for him to have a job. I wanted him to be ready when the time came and have already practiced with money, so that the next natural step is, okay, now it's time for you to earn money. Now that you understand. So 7th grade worked out really well for us. So, maybe middle school for a class of that nature.
Yeah. Definitely in high school, I think some sort of finance class or something like that is really helpful. And I was able to take one after high school as well, which incredible. Definitely.
Yes.
You got to keep up with it, because you said, if you're not practicing it, you lose it.
Exactly. And my class, my Beyond Personal Finance, is a semester personal finance class. And we talk about the future in a way that I'm trying to make the future relevant to them. But, as you age, there are more things to learn. I'm not teaching them. We do talk about investing because they need to learn that their money can work for them. Yeah. And because they have a budget, they see, oh, wow, I got paid interest for saving money. Oh, that allows me to have more money. Oh, that's right. Like, they see it in their budget. But I don't go into different investment strategies and stuff like that, not because it's not important. It's just that I need to first teach them. The first thing they need to know is, why do I need to invest? And until I can convince them of why and show them how it works in a bigger picture in their budget, then it becomes relevant. How, what should I choose, etc. But right now they're young enough that me going into, certainly we talk about mutual funds and diversification and all that stuff, but a class as a young adult on investment tools is important too. You don't just stop learning. Yeah.
We got another question. There are, we're all different. None of us all are the same, and so there are some people that tend to maybe live a bit more of a scattered lifestyle, and versus some people who are maybe a little bit more organized in the lifestyle. So, do you have any suggestions for how either a parent or a teenager, a student, could someone who maybe lives a little bit more of that scattered lifestyle, how they could get a hang of some of these principles that you're talking about?
Yeah, this money requires discipline, and there's just a little bit of discipline that just is involved in keeping track of it. When I talk to the teenagers, I teach the class live as well. And, it basically, one of the questions is, when am I ready for my own debit card? And, what do I do? And or like even a credit card. And, it's like, well, when you are organized enough to keep up with your money, and if it's, and make a payment on a credit card, when you are organized enough, when you are self-disciplined enough, all of those things determine when you're ready. And so I like to help them learn discipline through money, because you really can't be scattered with money, because if you lose the bill, as then you forget to pay it and you get late fees and those kinds of things. So I would definitely try to help them, when you give them money, set aside a time to sit down and look at it. Don't make it laborious. Technology is your friend on looking, at your statements and things like that. But you are going to have to be somewhat regular with it, just because of the nature of money. I know that's probably not great. And a lot of times in families, the scattered one really isn't the one that pays the bills, which I can appreciate. My husband is scattered, and but our kids aren't. They may not get married right away, and they need to be able to, even when they're scattered, they need to recognize that something this important needs a little bit more of their attention.
Well, and something that you mentioned just a little bit ago, is once they start seeing the end goal, like once I was learning, how much things cost and how much I would have to save in order to get certain things when I started becoming an adult. I became more motivated once I knew what I was
Correct.
shooting for. I became more motivated to
That's
keep
right.
up with it. You mentioned technology. Are there any budgeting programs or anything like that that you've used, or that you'd recommend that would be simple for someone starting out?
Okay, hang on.
Just to keep track of. Yeah, go ahead.
I did think of one thing about being scattered. So my son, who was a little bit more scattered than my daughter, one of the money teaches is responsibility. So if I went to the grocery store and did not have my wallet, I would not be able to get my stuff. So in the same way, once I gave my son money to pay for candy versus, in Legos, that whole thing, when he had his allowance, or even if he, that year where he had to pay for his food with the money I gave him, both of those times, if he did not bring his wallet, he did not eat, or he did not get the treat. So he would say, and it was so freeing as a mom, because we would be at the register and he'd go, "Mom, can I get this Kit Kat?" And I would go, "Yes." And then he would say, he'd open his wallet and not have the money. And so the money would say no. Or he said, "Well, I didn't bring my wallet." And then I would go, "Oh, bummer." And that's that. I mean, can you convince the store guy to give you the Kit Kat? No. Okay, well then. And so it really taught him to bring his wallet. If he lost his wallet and there was money in it, then it took him longer to save for the Legos. So I think in that way, it helps too. You just have to be careful not to rescue them. We sat right there at a dinner. Now, my son is 7th grade, so nobody feels sorry for him. He's perfectly fine. But one night we went out to eat and he didn't bring his wallet. And so the 3 of us ate and he had to wait till he got home to eat. And it was a hard lesson, but he had been reminded, this wasn't, his first time. He knew he just wasn't paying attention. And the truth is, if he were out with his friends, he would suffer. And I want him to suffer at home when it's safe to suffer than out in the world. And if that means some painful lessons, I remember the first time, he's in college now, and he came home and we were flying with him somewhere, and they said, "Oh, can I have your driver's license?" And I thought, oh my gosh, no way he brought his wallet. And sure enough, he had his wallet right there. I was like, oh, that's right. That's right. And so, that's that. But in terms of programs, when the dollars are small like this, it really can be done on something simple like paper or a spreadsheet. I mean, there is Mint, it's free, but it's, I never want to bog the kids down early on when it's just kid-sized dollars, because, they're not spending too much money, and visually they're used to doing math on paper. So they can really keep up with it on paper. I think that introducing anything bigger than that would only make it feel more complicated than it really needs to be, because eventually they are going to have to move to a budgeting program and all that. Now, I will say that in Beyond Personal Finance, when they do adult budgets, we do them on Google Sheets. And, it's a typical adult budget. It starts with income, then it's got housing and utilities and car and entertainment and food and insurance. They'll do budgets in Google Sheets. But for their kid money, I think something simple is best.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I remembered a question that I had a while back when you were first talking at the beginning. You mentioned getting a job.
Yes.
I know one of my brothers got a job at Chick-fil-A during high school, and there are definitely pros and cons to working in food service. What is I assume your kids have had jobs before they graduated high school. What kind of jobs would you suggest for a high school student?
Yeah, well, really, it especially for a kid who is scattered, something regular, because they need to learn that skill. They need to be held accountable by someone besides their parents, because the best thing for them would be to get fired because they were late. When they're living with you and it's safe and you can talk it through and you can help them recover and all the things, rather than them getting fired because they never had a job until they left, or they only worked for their family, and so the boundaries were less rigid. So I would just look for what's missing in their development. That's what we do as adults. We parent the kid that we have. Both of my kids are different. My son wanted to do nothing but spend money and play video games. And that was kind of it. He's a spender, but he never showed any effort to get money to spend. That kid was working at age 14 and a half, and he just never stopped working because I didn't want to teach him that sitting on the couch was okay. And I certainly didn't want to finance his lifestyle. So he worked forever. My daughter is a saver, and she's far more diligent in school. And so she works in the summer, and some of her jobs are unpaid because she really needs the experience She's very clear on what she wants to do. And so going to do that to get experience is a better investment of her time than working at Chick-fil-A. She'd be an amazing Chick-fil-A worker, but she doesn't really need to learn how to work for somebody nearly as bad as my son did. My daughter needed to learn other things. So, you know, you also could have a grinder. Neither one of my kids are all that into money enough to grind away like those kids. Will make far more money working for themselves, doing lawn care, or, you know, picking up poop in the yards, or taking out trash cans. And, you know, that's okay too. But those kids are naturally going to know to manage their schedules because they're grinders. That's just who they normally are. So I would say, see the weaknesses in your kids and try to find things that help build up the muscles that they are lacking, rather than just say, well, you know, he's not very good with schedules, so I better not get him a job that has a schedule. No, it's just the opposite. You really need to develop what they're not very good at.
Yeah. We had another question come in while you were talking about that, a little bit related to what you just said, actually, about the kids that are you know, doing their own businesses. Rebecca asks, how would you recommend handling a child that has an interest in entrepreneurial pursuits? That's a hard word to say.
It is.
And so, you know, 12-year-old son, he wants to start a business,
Yep.
but she's trying to figure out how she can help him get started in that.
Right. Well, you know, I love, I mean, here I am, I have my own business, so I am definitely all for the small business people, and definitely, you know, for their interest. Does need to really see, I mean, you know, you can have the best product in the world, but if there's not a market for it, then it's really not a business, it's a hobby. And so the sooner these kids kind of make that connection and understand, I teach one girl and she does beautiful clay work, just beautiful. But this box that she's selling, you open up, it's a treasure box, and you look inside, and she's made a little dioramas in there, and they're beautiful. But the boxes, she's selling them for $150. Well, she doesn't make many sales at that price. And so it's so much good to learn there. But to get them started, they're going to have to kind of take on some of that themselves. You know, it can't be their idea that you are implementing, because that's not how small businesses work. That's actually how my husband works. My husband does this. You know what we should do? We should start, like, he loves to barbecue. So he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up a food truck. And I'm like, are you? You know, you've got to get food permits. You've got to hire. Oh, no, you're going to do all that. Oh, okay. Right. And so you really have to, if they want to start a business, there are resources online to help them do that. But the onus needs to be on them to research, you know, hey, find this out and come back and report to me. What is it going to take? What is it going to cost? How are you going to get the money to get started? Who are you going to sell it to? How are you going to sell? Think it through and use the internet to research and find the answers would be what I would, you know, I would put a lot of the work on him, because that's what entrepreneurship is all about.
So not doing the work for him, but
Correct.
Working with him and helping guide him as he's at this fairly young age.
Correct. Yeah, because, you know, it's great to encourage that, especially for a side business. You know, it's very difficult to make all that you need in the beginning, you know, and so the sooner you have a side business that you've built up, the easier it would be to turn that side business into something, or to understand, okay, I'm going to need a career with this on the side.
Yeah. I love that. Well, we don't have any more questions coming in, and you've given us a lot of information. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Again, the recording of this webinar and all the information that Charla shared will be on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/HomeLifeAcademy. And again, Charla's website is artisanofadulting.com. Is that correct?
That is, yeah, like if you want to follow me for weekly parenting advice and freebies as you subscribe every week, on Wednesdays it actually comes out. And it's stuff like the blog that you will see today that Joseph mentioned. And then that's Artisan of Adulting, and it'll link to Beyond Personal Finance, but Beyond Personal Finance has their own website at beyondpersonalfinance.com. So either way you can find me. Either way, if you subscribe on either website, you will get the weekly emails. I don't send spam. I don't sell your information or anything like that. It's just a way for me to find you. You know, I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, so you can definitely check me out there as well.
Yeah. Well, super. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah,
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
All
Good to
right.
talk. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.